We're holding the line starts the Moed Katan. Okay, line Daf Chavav Min Aleph. The line starts the Moed Katan, which is 6 lines from the widest lines on the right side. The line starts the Moed Katan. So Tonu Al Birchas Hashem. Yeah, this is we're holding in the middle of the Gemara started in the beginning of the Yom. The Gemara started mentioning a few things that when these happen, so we start last week. We started a new piece in Gemara. The Gemara was saying that there's a few times that you have to do kliya to rent your garments, and when you do kliya, these times you cannot fix the garments back to regular self. You cannot mend it and fix it in a professional way. Those have to stay ripped or with a sign that it was ripped. And one of the things that was in the beginning of the page of Chavav, and basically we're just going to quickly just go over what was it. Father and mother, a teacher that taught you Torah, and it's mechaliks over there whether he had to teach that person most of the majority of his Torah, the majority of his knowledge, or just a little bit. A nasi, a prince or a leader of that generation, a av bezdin. Then that's people that passed away, and things that happened. If you hear very bad news, if you hear someone got through with cursing out the Eibishter, a Sefer Torah that gets burned, and the cities of Yehuda, and the city of Yehuda, the Beis Hamikdash, and Yerushalayim. And it said here, it added a thing here that when you hit Yerushalayim, when you see the Beis Hamikdash and the way it was destroyed, and then you also see Yerushalayim, you end up doing kliya on the Mikdash. You're moisif, and you're adding the kliya. You're holding on the garments. You're ripping a little bit more. Okay, that's all we learned. These are the few things that the few people that passed away, a few things, incidents that happened that you have to do kliya. You have to rip your garments. So we are holding the 6 lines from the widest lines. The line starts the Moed Katan. Al Birchas Hashem Minolan. How do we know that when someone hears someone curse out the Eibishter, how do we know that you have to do clear? Because it says the pasuk, ben Abayis. This was a story. We finished last week with it. I was repeating it because the Gemara continues with it. So the story was that Melech Ashur and Chedev sent his people to conquer Yerushalayim. They went around the Chayma, and basically they sent Rav Sheikom to speak to them, to convince them to let Ashur rule in Yerushalayim. That the king at that time, which was Yehoy, what was the king's name? Chizkiyahu, to give over the weapons. What is it called? To
surrender.
Surrender. Thank you. To surrender to Ashur. So
ceasefire.
Yeah. So basically, Rav Sheikha started cursing out the Torah, and started cursing out the Shem, and started cursing out the saying that the God that you relied on, there's no one to rely on, Chaz v'Shalom, etc., etc. And they walked back to the king Chizkiyahu, and they had ripped clothing. Why? Because as soon as they heard the person cursing out, Rav Sheikha cursing out the Eibishter, they have to rip their clothing. He was one of the messengers that the king sent out to hear what Rav Sheikha has to say. And together with him was Shavna Asoifen and Yoyach ben Osov, Hamaskil. He was the secretary. El Chizkiyahu. They went back to Chizkiyahu, and when they came, they already had rent garments. Kului begodim, they had ripped garments. Which basically, why? Because they heard him curse out the Eibishter, so had to rip their garments. And the pasuk continues then and says that when Chizkiyahu heard it, he also ripped his garments. So Tana Rabbanim, Echad Hashemeya, the person that hears another person curse the Eibishter, Ve'echad Hashemeya mipi Hashemeya. Says also if someone repeats someone hears someone cursing out the Eibishter, and then he goes and he repeats it. Why would he repeat it? Because the Gemara says he's talking about Eidim that come to Bezdin, and the Eidim have to openly say what happened. They can't say this he said and then say Lashon Sagana, say like the Gemara says Birchas Hashem. They have to say exactly what happened. And the Gemara uses a Lashon Yaka Yosef as Yosef, which basically is a like a hint to say that this is what happened. The Eibishter's name was mentioned together with a curse, with cursing out. So the first person that hears it from the cursor has to rip his garment. That the yonim, whoever is over there in the bezdin, has to rip the garments. The edim that come tell bezdin that they heard the guy say such and such, they don't have to rip the garments when they're in bezdin. Why? Because they're heard already, but the first time when it heard this actually happened, they ripped their garments. They don't have to rip their garments again.
They don't have to rip their garments?
They don't have to rip their garments again.
No, the Yonim have to?
The Yonim, yeah. Shemeya, yeah, because it's a shlekel chazach. So, but it says that because otherwise, who in the right mind would go repeat such a thing in front of friends? And if they would say such and such, curse the Eibush. They wouldn't say Yud Kevavke, he wouldn't say Hashem HaMefodesh, he wouldn't say the name the way it's written. He would say in a different way. And the only way someone would do that is when he repeats it for Bezdin. That's the Shemeim and Pia Shemeim, that the Yonim, they hear that it heard it from the listener. And the Eidim, which basically who is the one that repeats it, it's the Eidim. But the Eidim themselves, when they hear themselves saying it, they don't have to do clear again because they already did clear. What the difference does make that they heard it? They hear themselves saying it now. Let them rent the garments now again. And don't think that way. The Chesivik says in the Pasuk continues over there with the story with Chizkiyahu. When Chizkiyahu heard that, Vayikra es begodov, that he ripped his garments. Hamelech kara v'hemelech kara. They did not rip their garments. Why? Because they were the Eidim. The only question I had here, and I did not have enough chance of playing it, I did not have enough resources to look it up, is maybe in the story, I still have to look it up, maybe in the story, Chizkiyahu, these three people came to Chizkiyahu, and they had ripped garments. As they told Chizkiyahu the story, their garments were already ripped. So that's why they didn't rip their garments. It showed that they were upset about that incident. Maybe if a Eidim come to Bezdin and say that such and such, so and so did such and such, and they changed their clothing in the middle, maybe they have to rip their garments again. In this case, they we're walking around with ripped garments. The pasuk says that. And the other we can't learn from this case that if Eidim show up in Bezdin and they change their clothing in between, that they shouldn't rip their garments. Tosfos explains this, the Eidim. The Echad Shmei Shemei Tosfos says, Pirish Tosfos, min ha'Eidim she'oimim zeh, which the Yonim, basically who listens to the Eidim, the guy that writes the guy that writes up the stenographer, yeah. So it says V'imo Emiyaki Yosef Yosef. If he says a kino, he doesn't say it as his nickname. He doesn't say the real thing. He says something that they can understand. They don't have to be clear because it's not clearly. But anyways, the Eidim really have to repeat exactly what the blasphemer. What's it called? Blasphemer.
Blasphemy.
Yeah. Says. You have to repeat exactly what it says because that's how Eidus works. In any case, so basically the halacha is that someone that hears first person cursing the Eibishter, then if it's repeated in Bezdin, he has to do it again. And the Eidim, they don't have to repeat it at the time because they have to read it. Zagt die Gemara weiter. V'loi misachim. How do we know that when you rip the garments in these cases, v'loi misachim, that you can't fix it, you can mend it back to the regular, to the way it was before, or to a professional mend. We already had this. It says the kriya by Elisha. Elisha, it says that he held. The first pasuk that we have in this Gemara, Elisha held onto his garment and ripped it in two, and it says that he ripped it lishnaim kloim. Obviously, if you rip something, it goes in two pieces. Why does it say that? And why does it? Because it means that it ripped it in such a way that it doesn't get mended against. And here also it says clear. So therefore, when you hear the Eibishter being Chas Shalom cursed, you rip it in a way and you don't fix it up. Then we go to the next part. Sefer Torah Shnisav Minolim. if a Sefer Torah was burned, how do we know that you do clear? The Chesivit says in Pasuk Hazoy. This is the story of Gedalia ben Achikam. When in the times of Gedalia and Tzom Gedalia, the Gedalia ben Achikam was almost right after the Chod Beis Hamikdash, and there was a guy. His name was Shmuel ben Netanyahu, and he was a mass murderer, and he Pasha just had a lust for blood, and he went around murdering. He murdered Gedalia ben Achikam. At that time, people came up from a different place. No, sorry. I'm. This is the next story. Sorry, this is the next psukim that I bring up. I went ahead. This is a story about Yirmiyahu. Yirmiyahu and David told him, write down what I'm going to tell you. And David tells him, write down these words. Maybe if the Yidden would know what I plan to do to them, they will do tshuva and return to the Eibishter. They return to me to serve the Eibishter instead of idols. So Yirmiyahu wrote down, which we now know is the Megillas Eicha, or the beginning of Megillas Eicha, and then he needed to bring this message to the Yidden. He couldn't do it himself because he was banned from going to Beis Hamikdash. So the pasuk says he brought someone else. He sent Baruch, I forgot his name, and he sent him up to the Beis Hamikdash and he read the Megillas Eicha in front of Yidden, and everyone heard. And there was one guy that was close to the king. He heard the message. He went to the king and told him that this guy in Beis Hamikdash stood up and read all these bad things that are supposed to happen to the Yidden in the name of the Eibishter by a Navi. So the king basically got hold of the book, got hold of the Megillas Eicha, and he told this guy, we don't know his name. His name is Yehudi. They named him Yehudi, and he told him, read. I want to hear what it says there. And he started reading. After reading 3 or 4 psukim, he got upset, and the king ripped the Megillas Eicha and threw it in the fire. This is the pasuk. Vayikra Yehudi. When the Yehudi read Sholish Dalses V'Alba, Dalses is psukim, 3 or 4 verses. Vayikra Basar Asoifel. He ripped it with a razor. V'Hashlech Esoeish Asher Al-Och, and he threw it in the fire that was there. My Sholish Dalses V'Alba. Why did he wait 3 or 4 psukim? Why didn't he rip right away? Why didn't he read 7 psukim? Zat Gemara Amal Yehakim Ksav Yirmiyah Kosav Yirmiyah Sefer Kinas. They told this person that Yirmiyah wrote the Sefer Kinas. Amaluhu Maksiv. The king told him, okay, what is written in Sefer Kinas? So he told him, this is what is written. The first pasuk, Eicha Yoshva Badot, talking about the Yidden, that the Yidden or the Beis Hamikdash, Eicha, the Tzion, they were sitting there alone. Amaluhu. So the king said, this pasuk doesn't pertain to me. Why? Because I'm a king. I'm never alone. I know Malka. Doesn't mean anything for me. Amalei. So I told him the second pasuk in Eicha is Bacha Sich Balayla. They were crying at night because they were alone and they were hurt. Yeah, they have no one that consoles them. The pasuk says. So he says, I have no problem with that. I'm a king. I know Malka. I'm a king. I'm not scared of sitting at night. I have, palace and people around me. So they said the third pasuk, your nation is hurt. Golsi Yehuda Ma'ini. The Yidden are you're going to go to Galus. So I know Malka. Again, the Yidden are going, but it doesn't have anything to do with me. So then he said, Da'ak Tzion Avela is the paths of Tzion of Yerushalayim are dressed in mourning. So it says, okay, that's Yerushalayim, that's the Yidden are suffering, but it's not me. So he says again, I know Malka, I'm again a king. So then he says the 5th pasuk, that's the first 4 psukim, then he started the 5th pasuk. The enemies, the harassers of the Yidden, they are going to be the head, they're going to be leading. So here it means I'm losing my job already. Yeah, if they're being the leaders, I'm losing my job. Amalus said, okay, let me find out what's going on. Manama, who wrote this Megillah? Who is saying these things? In that pasuk, the pasuk continues, and it says like this. The Eibush is the one that came up with this idea. Yeah. So he says, the Eibush is the one that came up with these ideas, let's say, and the Eibush is the one that punishes the Yidden, and the Eibush is the one that decided that at this point the enemies are going to be the leaders, not you. Miyad, right away when it came to the 5th pasuk, Koda Kolas, he cut through all the names of the Eibishter Shema, V'sof Meish, and he threw it in the fire. And he burned it. And it says there in Tanakh, if you look in Tanakh, it says that his servants, when they heard it, they actually got scared. When they heard the Megillas Eicha being read, they pachadu, they were in fear, they were anxious, and they were scared. They wanted to actually do tshuva. When they came to the king and they read it for him, all of a sudden the people around the king were not, they weren't scared. And when they told him at that time, before the Megillah was read to the king, they told the king, please do not burn it, do not destroy this Megillah. And he didn't listen. And immediately it says the people did not fear. The few people that were close to the king, they did not fear. But it says, "Veloy pachadum, veloy koaz b'gdeim." They were not in fear of punishment. Veloy koaz b'gdeim did not do the correct thing, which would have been to rent their garments. Mechlal de boilim, because they had to actually rent their garments. From here we see that when a Sefer Torah is ripped or burned, then you have to rent your garments. And this is not only the Meforshim, but they say this is a Megillas Eicha. This is not the actual Torah itself. Obviously, Megillas Eicha is one of the 24 Sfarim, one of the 24 parts of the Torah. But this goes on any piece of Torah that if something like that happens, you have to do Kriya. Zog the Gemara. Weiter. Omar of Papa Abaya. So Papa turned to Abaya and said, Amon, maybe the reason they did Kriya is Mishum Shmuah Salayas. You read Megillas Eicha and you're hearing terrible news. You're hearing that the Eibush is going to do such and such. And therefore, they did clear. We know already that on hearing bad things, we know that from Shaul and from Yonasan, we had last week, that you have to do clear. But maybe the fact that they should have ripped clear is because they heard bad news, and not because the Sefer Torah was born. So Abaya answered him, Amalei, Shmuas Rois Ba'ish Shaitim Yahava. Nothing happened. It was only rumors. It wasn't really something that happened. The Eibush said, if you're not going to make tshuva, then I'm going to punish you. But nothing happened at that time yet. Okay. Amar Abchelbay Amar Avuna. Abchelbay said the name of Avuna. If someone sees a Sefer Torah that was ripped, Chayv the Kla, he has to do clear. You have to rent your garments. But not stam. Shtei kriyas. You have to do it twice. Echad al Gvil, ve'echad al Ksav. One kriya you do on the parchment and one on the letters written in it. Shneimar, acharei soif hamelech es hamegila ve'es hadvarim. This is the story that they weren't fearing the Eibishter and they didn't do clear. When did they realize they didn't do clear? It was after the king burned the Megillah and the words. So we have to do two clears when you see a Sefer Torah being ripped. Rab Abba v'Rav Huna b'Chia have Yosef k'mei Rab Abba. Rab Abba v'Rav Huna b'Chia.
What's that previous one? If a Sefer Torah is ripped?
If a Sefer Torah is ripped, then you have to do two clear, one on the actual parchment and one on the letters.
Kriyas, you're going to do
Red your garments.
No.
Red your garments.
Okay, fine. Oh, you do it twice. Okay. Could it just be someone's doing Hagba and the Sefer Torah rips in half?
It has to. So the Meforshim speak about it. It's a good question. The Meforshim speak about it, and it's only when someone on purposely, it has to be that the story has to be similar to this, and the Gemara is going to actually write and say a story of something else that happened to a Sefer Torah, to something holy, and they basically say, and from it that the Chum say that it has to be exactly the same thing.
Hey, how long was this before Nebuchadnezzar?
This was very close, I think. No, when was the story of Yirmiyahu? Chizkiyahu was the last king. Yeah. He was the one that was killed on the way out, running under the tunnel. So, okay, says the Gemara, weiter, a story. Rab Abba v'Rab Huna b'Chia have Yosef k'mei Rab Abba, and we changed it a little bit because Rab Abba wasn't sitting in front of himself. It says here, not kamei the Rab Abba. Rab Abba v'Huna b'Chia have Yosef. Period. Come Rab Abba. Rab Abba stood up. He had to use the bathroom. Shakle the tetafte. He took his tetafos. We know what the tetafos is, right? Tefilin. That is tefilin. Achte abesadia. He put it on a pillow next to him. Asya basna amisa. An ostrich came. He wanted to swallow it, to eat up the tefillin. wanted to, didn't do it yet. Amar, so the Abba said, if it would have happened, I would have had to rip 2 clears. The same which we had before, the ksav and the gvil on the words and on the parchment. Amale minoloch. How do you know that you have to do 2 clears? Why do you say it? Ha v'ha b'didi ha v'uvda. Sorry, minoloch ha. How do you know that? V'b'didi ha v'uvda with me was a story like this. The same story. An ostrich apparently loves to eat film, and there's something like this happened. And I came in front of Masna. He didn't know what to answer. He didn't have an answer on his hands. I came in front of Yehuda. I said like this. This is what Shmuel said. The only time you have to do clear is if a person by force ripped the Sefer Torah, like the story that happened that we just mentioned, where the king went and cut up the Torah and then burned it. So in any other cases, when the Chaz Shalom Torah falls down during Hagbah, no, you do not have to do clear. And also, if an ostrich eats your film, you don't have to do clear. Okay. On a little, side note here. Today, if you hear someone cursing out the Eibishter, what do? So the Rabbeinu Hananel, I don't know if this is, everyone's page is different. Rabbeinu Hananel is on this Gemara. It is. Oh yeah. Okay. Also on this Gemara, it's on the side here. Yeah, the Shalmi. It's on the side here. The Shalmi. See, this Gemara is also different.
I'm saying it's okay.
So do different versions of the Bechananel. On the side, basically on the side, this says the Shalmi. There's a few times it says the Shalmi. This one says like this: the Shalmi mahu likoy b'zman hazeh. Do we have to rip clear b'zman hazeh when you hear someone cursing out the Eibishter? B'shum Rabbi Yochanan Amrum. So the Shalmi is written like this. And the name of Yochanan said, "B'sherobu hagatfanim." When we had a lot of people that started cursing out the Eibishter, but had to stop doing it because they realize that they're doing it on purpose, so we don't pay any attention to them. If someone curses out a nickname of Hashem, the Eibishter has a names that we are not allowed to erase, Yud-Kevavke, Elakim, but what if the Eibishter also has nicknames? Like the word Hashem is a nickname, but the Knuim here means nicknames that are holy, but the question is, if someone basically curses the Eibishter using those names, do you have to look there? Now, Shme'in and Me'ada, we can hear from this story. The Shlokish have Mahalach Baderech. The Shlokish was walking. His Daman Lekuti, a certain Kuti, a guy he met a certain Kuti. Have a Megadef, the Kuti went and cursed the Eibishter. V'hu Kareya. Shlokish started ripping his clothing. Megadef, again he was cursing, and again he's ripping, constantly doing it. Nachas min chama, he saw that the guy is not stopping. He went off his donkey. V'yav le matika goyliba. What is the matika goyliba? Tagum be'evan be'egav. He took a hand or his fist, and maltik p'yishikor be'egav. He gave him a punch. He punched him in his chest. Amalei, he told the guy, Rasha, is manin le'imach mesapkoli. Does your mother have enough garments to replace Ilan Shekolate, those that I had to rip? Hado'amazim, here we say Shekoil and Kanuim is manazeh. We see Taka that the guy wasn't using Yot Kevavke. The guy didn't know the Eibishter's names. Here we see that you have to do clear if you hear someone cursing out the Eibishter using a nickname of the Eibishter, Kinui. But
Mocking is another nickname.
Right, but we said already. This was until Nisrabu Hagatfan, until we had a lot of people started cursing. Once that happened, even that went on. He was just basically saying, would this halacha technically apply also on the Eibishter's nickname? Okay, back in the Gemara. We're holding here the 7 lines in the bottom. Ode Yehuda Minolan, 8 lines in the bottom, in the middle of the page. Ode Yehuda Minolan, the cities of Yehuda. How do you know if you see them destroyed that you have to do clear? And by the way, it doesn't say Other Yisrael, it doesn't say the cities of Yisrael. And the Meforshim say that the reason it doesn't say cities of Yisrael is because at that time we're talking about the Gemara, which was after the Chulun by Sheni. At that time, the cities of Israel was basically left to just other Yehuda. It was just basically Judea. It wasn't occupied fully. So that's why he talks about other Yehuda, but not other Israel. So how do we know when someone sees the destroyed cities of Yehuda that you have to clear? It says in Pasuk, this was the story of Gedaliah ben Achikam. So Yishmael ben Netanyahu killed Gedaliah ben Achikam. And there were people left these places, Shechem, Shiloh, and Shimron. And on the way, they were bringing Bikudim, they were bringing different things to bring to the Beis HaMikdash. Mincha, Levoin, the Pasuk says. And on the way to the Shalayim, they see destruction, what's going on. They find out the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed. But on the way up to the Shalayim, they already ripped clear. So Vayavoyu, and they came to Yishmael ben Netanyahu. And Yishmael ben Netanyahu greets them, crying bitter tears that Gedaliah was killed, even though he killed himself. Then he murdered them in cold blood, these people, and then he put them dug them into a grave, and basically, and then he ended up, the Eden rose up against this Yishmael, and they sent him flying. Then guys, this story was after the destruction of Beis HaMikdash. They're walking up to Shalayim, and they see the cities of Yehuda destroyed. 80 people, they were shaved and they had ripped garments, which was back then. This was what you used to do when you were an oval. When someone was an oval, you had to cut you had to shave your beard and rent your garments. So they came up to this Beis HaMikdash like this. What were they holding in their hand? They were hurting themselves, and they had a mincha levoine biyadim lahavi beis Hashem, and they had a kal mincha, and they had flour in their hands to bring Beis Hashem. Why? Because on the way out of their cities, they did not know yet that the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed. Only in the middle of the way they see that the cities are destroyed. Oh, what happened? The Beis HaMikdash was destroyed. But on the way up, on the way out of their city, they didn't know. So why did they do clear? Because they walked into cities of Yehuda and they saw the destruction and they did clear. Ama Reb Chelboy, Ama Ula Bil'ah. Reb Chelboy said in the name of Ula Bil'ah, Ama Abalaza, Yehuda Bechobanan. If someone sees the cities of Yehuda and when they're destroyed in their destruction, Oimer, he says a pasuk this. Your holy cities became a desert. And he rips his garment. If he sees when he sees the Shalayim, bechubana oimat Tzion midba hoisa. Tzion or Shalayim turn into a desert. The Shalayim Shemama. Tzion is the whole Etzisrael, and the Shalayim is Shemama is desolate. And he rips it clear. Beis HaMikdash bechubana. If he sees Beis HaMikdash when it's in its destruction. Oimer says, Beis Kodeshenu v'tifatenu, our holy house, our beautiful house, Asher Halalucha v'seinu, that our forefathers praised you in there, Hoyel Sleifas Eish, turn into a fire, a pit, V'chol Machmadenu, Hoyel Echadva, and all our most precious things turned into destruction, V'kadeh, and he does clear.
So what does it mean, all these things, like you see these different cities?
But
how do you define... You walk into Jerusalem now, is it considered a...
So today, there is some people avoid Yerushalayim because they feel like they have to, every time they walk to Yerushalayim and it's not Mashiach's time, so they do clear. Some people every time they go to the Koisel look clear. I think today the minute is that when you go to the Koisel and you see the Koisel, that's when you do clear. That is the minute, and only the first time, not every time you come.
First time once a year? First time
once in
your lifetime, or once in a month or something?
They say once in a lifetime. People have different shittas and different minhagim, but today I believe it is accepted it's once in a lifetime. First time you see it, you do clear.
People do that?
Yeah. And here's a Gemara, a very interesting thing. Sagt the Gemara weiter. We said in the beginning, in the Laisa, that when you see the Beis HaMikdash, you do clear, and then once you see also Yerushalayim, you add on the actual rip, you rip a little bit more for Yerushalayim. How could that possibly happen? When you go into the Beis HaMikdash, when you go to the Kaisel, you walk through Yerushalayim first. So I'm going to ask you a still. As soon as he reaches Tzoifim, which is a place outside of Yerushalayim, you start doing Kriya. V'Kriyah Lamigdash b'fnei Atzma, v'Shalayim b'fnei Atzma, and then you do Kriya separately in the Shalayim and separately on the Beis Hamikdash. In our B'laisa here, we said that when you see Beis Hamikdash, you rip Kriya and you add under the Shalayim. Here in this B'laisa, it says that you have to do a separate Kriya for Shalayim and a separate Kriya for Beis Hamikdash. How does it work out? Everything more like Kasha, it's not Shishkin Kasha. Hodapag b'Mikdash b'Reisha. Here it's talking about that when you do an Ablaisa in the beginning of the page, it's talking about that as he walked into Yerushalayim, the first thing he sees is the Beis Hamikdash, the way it was destroyed. Oh, the Pagah b'Shalayim, and this now later that we said that we see Yerushalayim and then we have to do clear, and Beis Hamikdash you have to do clear. This is if you first see Yerushalayim and then you see the Beis Hamikdash, then you have to do two separate kriyas. How is that possible? So Rashi says here on the side, Rashi says, "How the Pagah b'Mikdash b'Reisha." Kegoin, for example, Shenichnas Yerushalayim b'Shida Teva Migdal. He entered Yerushalayim in a box, closed in a box. So it's a very interesting way of entering Yerushalayim. But what if someone entered Yerushalayim in a casket or something, some sort of thing that he did not see, and he opened it up only when he gets to the Beis Hamikdash? That's what Rashi says. He only sees the Shalayim once he actually sees the Beis Hamikdash, and then you do a clear on the Beis Hamikdash, and then you add a little bit of Shalayim. But if you walk into the regular path, walk through the Shalayim, and then you go to the Kaisel, then you do the Shalayim first, and then you add. So then on the Beis Hamikdash, then you do two separate clears.
Parachute in.
So if you but then also when you parachute, you see what's going on the bottom. You have to be blindfolded.
You have to be on ground level, actually.
So there's a simpler way. There's a simpler way. The Litva says, if you know Yerushalayim the way it's what's situated, so the Ma'ariv, which is east, East Jerusalem is the shortest way to the Kaisel. We know that's how you got short. By the whole Yerushalayim Atika. And what's it called? That's all east of Yerushalayim. That's basically east of the Kaisel. The west is the west. Sorry, no, one second. Ma'ariv is
West.
Ma'ariv is west. Thank you. So the west of Yerushalayim is the Iratika is the what's it called? The Shar Shechem is up, but the west of Yerushalayim is the whole Yerushalayim is situated west. The east of Yerushalayim is Har HaZeisim, and Har HaZeisim finishes, and there's no one lives there, and it's pretty much the mountain. Then there's Yerushalayim. If you look at the maps, this is what it looks like. So the Tzva explained, Bamina Mizrach. If you come from Mizrach, which is Har HaZeisim, then the first thing you would meet is the Beis Hamikdash, because you will walk up and boom, you the Beis Hamikdash ready. You don't see Yerushalayim yet. So then you do it on the Mikdash, and as soon as you cross into Yerushalayim, now you see Yerushalayim also, you add it on the clear. But if you go Mina Ma'ariv, much simpler solution than walking the Shiur On Gemara all day. Although today, with the Arabs dominating the place there, that would probably be the only solution to do it this way, by entering in a box. But that is basically that is what the Ritva writes. The Ritva also continues, and it says from the Yerushalmi, the question that he asked, do we do it all the time? So then the Ritva Paskan over there, that the Yerushalmi, it's brought down that a person that would walk out, his job was transportation with donkeys. So he asked, what do? I walk in through every door in Yerushalayim, and I walk multiple times because that's my job. I do transports. So every time I walk in and out, I have to clear. So it says, within 30 days, you rip once, and then you have 30 days until the next time. But once you leave, and basically that continues. If you walk in, walk out, walk in, walk out, your 30 days starts again. Basically, you have to have 30 days that you did not enter Yerushalayim, and after that you have to do clear again. Although today we don't do that, Allah, but that's something interesting that he brought down. A question that was asked. Okay.
So this person would essentially only do it once, ever.
If he walks in and walks in and walks in and out, yes.
There'd never be a time when he would be 30 days without doing his job.
Yeah, could be. Or if he would walk his job would be to walk 2 months somewhere and then a return.
Right, 2 months, right, exactly.
Long distance transport.
Yeah. From Yerushalayim to like what's it called? Okay.
It's gonna be in a box.
Bus is a bar, I guess.
But yeah, but boss you could see. It has
Close
to
the
be.
windows.
It has to be a taste. Shit, it has to be a real box.
Seal.
Zak die Gemara weiter. Last line. Tana Rabbanan. V'kulam. So we said basically all these things that happened, all the people that passed, these people that I mentioned that passed away, are all these things that happened that you hear. You have to do clear, and you cannot fix it. Ein misachin, you cannot fix it. The Tana Rabbanan, the Rabbanan said v'kulam, but all these rips that we just made, rashoyin, you're allowed to l'shoylan u'lemoylan u'leloikton. Shoylan. There's two pshat and two machlokes what it means. Either it means that you take the threads and you tie them together, and basically you will be like you will take two rip like this, and you will take the threads and basically tie. So it's not perfect, but it's not a big rip. Or it could be shoylan that you make very wide stitches. That's another person that ties this way. Moilalon means that you roll them. You roll it, and then you do stitches through the thing that you rolled. So it's not fixing the garment, but you roll it together, two ends. You roll two ends together somehow, and then you let's say you go like this, and you roll it together, and then you go through and you stitch through. So it's held together, but it's not fixing it properly. That's moilon. The loikton is you take two ends in a different way. I think it's like something that is not rolling, but you take this and make it a very simple stitching, not professional fixing. But that you're allowed to. Well, you're allowed to do like ladders. What does ladders mean? Ladders have rungs. Rungs are very spaced. Between each rung there's some space. So fixing in that way, do the stitches are very widely spaced. That is fine. But not fixing it professionally. Rav Chisda said, what kind of ichoy are we talking about? Alexandria. We're talking about a fixing which is called from Alexandria, where they had very professional seamstresses or tailors that fixed it up very well. So that you're not allowed to do. And basically, they did it such a professional way that he couldn't even tell that it was a rip there. Yeah. So basically, why would you even want to fix such garments? Because in the olden days, you didn't have many garments laying around. So what happens if someone had to do clear for any of these things that I mentioned before, and now such a thing happened to him again? So he takes his garment that he ripped already, and on the place that he did the previous rip, he re-rips it because he put it together, unprofessionally, let it re-rip. So if someone goes in that, either the four ways that he fixed it, he does clear again, liyotza. He's not yotze. Why not? Because it's never fixed to be able to do clear again. But if he did fix it, and we're talking about someone that rips, has to do clear for a sibling or a spouse, were you allowed to fix it, and you're allowed to fix it professionally after a time, and what on that part, what icha we're talking about, he has to be fixed so professionally that he would never even know that there was ever a rip there. Icha Alexander has to be done very professionally. Tana Rabbanon. So Rabbanon said as back in the days, they used to wear tunics. Had two sleeves, a small opening on top for the head, wider opening on the bottom for the feet. But no, they didn't have, pants, the legs. So it was basically a tunic. Tunic is very simple. You have a very simple idea. You have to, I don't want to show myself, but you have to do clear on the top. So you do the clear, and what they would do is they would cut off the sleeves, turn over the garment, now rip is on the bottom, open up the sides a little bit so you have more leg room, and sew the top so you have a smaller head thing to it. And basically reattach the sleeves on the top. And also now I have a beautiful garment, it's fixed. So the Gemara, you're allowed to turn it over, and basically fix it up that way. So you're not fixing the actual place that you ripped, but you're turning it over and you're flunking around with it a little bit. Yeah.
Did we ever discuss where on the garment you have to cut and who does the cutting?
Who, not yet. Where, it's going to discuss later on in the Gemara. Where exactly. We have discussed it a little bit a couple pages ago, where it says that for a father, you have to start from the real, because that tunics, they had the neck was closed, like, it was like a t-shirt, not a V-neck, a regular t-shirt. So you had to go from the seam, all the way to the top. But how deep, and we're going to do it a little bit later. Let's just see a few more lines. The Gemara says like this. The Tanakhama says you're allowed to turn it over and then reconfigure your garments and you're good. No, you can't do that. Then the Gemara says the same way that the seller, the one that ripped the garments initially, is not allowed to fix it. If he decides to sell the garment, he cannot. The buyer cannot fix it either. Because of that, the moicha has to tell his client, the guy that buys it, that there's a rip here, and you cannot rip it. And there's two reasons why he has to tell him. Number one, fixing it is a problem. You're not allowed to fix it, so that's number one. Number two is also there's a concept of of cheating the guy. The guy is going to say, "Oh, the reason you're selling this garment for so cheap because I see a rip. I can easily fix the garment." And now he's telling him, "Oh, you can't fix it." After he pays him, you can't fix it. So therefore, before he buys it, you have to let him know, "I don't want to cheat money out of you. You can't fix the rip. The rip is there to stay." Now that's the two reasons. Now there's a quick Taisus. There's actually the Machloikas here. The Taisus Kacha Lekeach Osel Achoisei says Taisus. Second is on the top. What happens if a guy wants to buy it? I don't know if you're allowed to sell it to a goy. So he says the reason like this. Nay, true, the lekeach osel achoisei, that the a yid that buys it is not allowed to fix it. Maybe if it's a goy, is allowed to. Even though the seller has to let the buyer know that this was ripped before because of kriya. That the lekeach shouldn't do a transgression. He shouldn't make a mistake and fix something that he's not allowed to. But if the goy is not going to make an avela, but therefore it should have been mutter. That is not to tell the goy. But we have to still think about it. And it says here on the side, there's in the Masechta Smachas, it says no, that you're not to sell the goy. Okay, the Gemara finishes off basically saying that when it says that you have to let the buyer know that it was ripped, so according to Tanna Rabbanan, it's also the garment that was turned over. If you took the tunic and turned it over, then you have to let the buyer know, I turned it over, so that he shouldn't turn it back and do, let me fix it up nice. This looks weird, this whole thing. According to Reb Shimon, that it does not allow it to do that garment this way. He says that he has to let him know only on the regular garment, because he can't fix the second garment. But Taisus finishes off, my the pligi, the machlokes is where you can turn over a tunic tops to bottom near the Moed Katan. Looks at the Katan that you're allowed to fix the garment, you're allowed to turn it over. Like that. And there's a machlokes here. The Dif and many other Meforshim start fighting with the Rambam. We'll do it next week. Or what's it called? It's a whole machlokes here. Who the Saka de Lacha go according to. Time.